Try and share this, create a post. Okay, I'm back. I don't know who's going to join this live, so we'll see who turns up. You'll have to excuse me. I'm going to put a little note here, I think. Let me just firstly change the settings, but I'm currently at a hospital, so if you hear some noises, that's what's going on. But I need to just change the settings, so give me a second, and I'll hopefully... Don't know who's going to join because I haven't done one of these for a long time. Let's just start a Q&A. How about that? No, I don't think I'm just going to delete. Yeah, no, I think I'm just going to explain why I'm online and leave it at that. Anyway, we'll see who joins in. I won't be too long anyway, because as I said, I'm at a hospital at the moment, so some of the patients are quite loud. Anyway, I wanted to just check in with everybody. It's been a while since I've done a live, and I felt it was time that I kind of did some updating and also just explaining, and just for some people to hear my voice, because I think it's hard when we're also disconnected online, and for people to know what's real and what's really going on. I just find with the RKelly brand name, if I'm quiet or if he's quiet, I think that that gives opportunity for a lot of people to spread a lot of lies. So I wanted to come on here and just update you myself in person about what's going on, so that you can all hear and pass it around to the right people. So what we're up to, we're in a strange phase, I guess, with all of this advocacy, and some of you that have been following this channel for a long time will know what's been going on. And if you follow the posts on the community board, you'll understand that we're in a really good place at the moment, because we've got lots of good news coming. So you have to excuse the noise. I'm in a hospital at the moment and it can get a bit noisy. So, but yeah, I just wanted to actually update you all and just check in, make sure everybody knows that good news is on its way. It's really hard for me because we've had so many, I guess, false starts, I guess, false flags, I guess, of good news. But this time I really have concrete news that is coming, and it's pretty unbelievable and pretty incredible. So what I want to share, I want to say so much. I always try to bite my tongue, because the problem with sharing things about King or R is that once you put it out there, it spreads like wildfire. So I'm really cautious about what I say. I just wanted to encourage everybody that there is some news coming, and please stay tuned to this channel. There is some great and unbelievable news coming. So we hope to have a different kind of conversation shortly. We are at a turning point, and I think that it's been a long journey to get here. Thank you all for all of you who've stuck by us and stuck by me particularly. Please excuse the noise. I'm at a hospital at the moment, so the patients are out there being a bit noisy. So I just need to check in, let you all know that good news is on its way. Please just don't get into any messiness, and please don't follow any other channels that are subscribing to gossip and slander. We all know that none of that is true. And if you've been following this channel and you've been watching through the videos, then you'll know that this is the only channel. This is his voice. I am his partner, Lady Juliet. We've been together over 6 years now. You can follow our story through our videos. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't watch the videos, which is a problem. So what are your thoughts on cannibalism? I don't know. Look, I really don't think about cannibalism, but anyway. Yeah, so anyway, welcome whoever's dropping in. I know that this kind of the way that they've set up YouTube, anybody can drop into this conversation and you have no idea who I am or what I'm talking about. We're talking about RKelly on this channel, and if you're a fan, if you're not a fan, I think it's interesting to listen in. But really, I just wanted to update mostly the supporters. But if you're just joining in, I really encourage you to watch through the channel, because the problem with a lot of people, there's a lot of laziness going on in the sphere, and people don't watch and listen to the videos on the channel. The videos on the channel are like diary entries. A lot of them happened in the moment, and updates happened in the moment. And our story is all throughout this channel. Unfortunately, if you don't take the time to listen to all the videos one by one from the beginning, then you're going to miss out on exactly who RKelly is. Robert Sylvester Kelly I'm talking about. You're going to get the wrong impression, and you're going to think that other stories out there are true because they're louder, they're bolder, they're more pronounced. I don't play around on here. I don't put up fake news, and I don't put my face out there for attention. So a lot of people presume that the information on this channel is false because of that. But I'm a private person. I'm a quiet person. So when I talk about RKelly, it's all very, very real. But I really encourage everybody that steps into this live, who sees this live, or who hears about this channel, that you please watch every single video you can on this channel before you assume anything about RKelly, because I've had to re-educate so many people, but unfortunately I can't do it without people doing their due diligence, which is just listen to the videos. The videos explain everything. Unfortunately, the people that refuse to watch and listen to the videos are the very ones that will make up lies, and they're the very ones that will say, oh, this, he's this and he's that, and you're a liar, and call me a liar or call me a con, because they refuse to actually do the research, do the proper research on this channel. If you listen to the videos on this channel, you'll see that they make sense, because I talk about dates, I talk about times, I talk about timelines, and I give evidence for everything I say. And sometimes I post conversations between his attorneys and me. Sometimes I post other kinds of evidence, but I never say anything as hearsay. You'll never hear me say anything just for the sake of attention. I put everything with receipts. And that's the difference between this channel and every other channel that you'll hear about talking about RKelly. So it does infuriate me that people never sit down to listen and watch through this channel, but then they make assumptions, they make false accusations, and they cause a lot of mess. So if you are interested in the RKelly story and the truth, please continue listening to hear. Hello, Ree Bonfield, I don't know. Yeah, hello, welcome. So yeah, please just listen through. Everything is receipted. I've always have backup to my receipts, which is timelines that the media have presented. So for example, when I told the story of Azrael, Clary and Joyce and Savage, and how we made them leave their apartment at Trump Tower back in 2019, when we first got together, we sent them home. That was in 2019, May 2019. The media themselves, TMZ, reported that they were found in a women's shelter. Now, that was sent and reported by Timothy Savage, who was Joycelyn Savage's father. And he did that intentionally, and he put that through to TMZ. But at the same time, their parents also posted that they saw them at home. So nothing I say is not without a backup receipt. I don't just say things on here. People do not listen. Today's society is a bunch of lazy bums, and unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with. I've been saying it, and I hope that anybody listening to this stops being lazy if you like celebrities, if you don't like celebrities, if you want to know more about what's going on with human trafficking and child abuse and all of that, and all of these major cases, do the work, actually get to know these cases, actually be a legitimate researcher with all of this, because nobody out there is going to tell you the truth, because most people are making money off of these stories in some way or another, and they are there to be paid. They don't care whether it's true. They care about how much attention they're going to get from the story. So whether it be any case of abuse of any kind, you've got to be so careful, because these sell like hotcakes on CNN and all the blogging sites. So you've got to do your due diligence and you've got to do the footwork. Unfortunately, channels like mine don't hit the algorithm so much, because I'm not the kind who likes to, be online and, show off my face every other day. I've been quite private, I've been a private citizen for most of my life. And that just doesn't get attention. But people that like to show off their bodies, and people who like to show off their faces, and who like to show off, they're the people, the sociopaths and the narcissists. They're the ones that people run to listen to. So thank you for joining me. I think that this is the RKelly podcast by Robert Sylvester Kelly. I'm Lady Juliet, his partner of 6+ years. Nobody knows about me, but this channel is all about our story. When I say nobody knows about me, most people do. This channel has reached about almost 1 million people. Between this channel and the other channels, we've reached about 1 million people so far, and we're hitting other records now. So I think that the next step that I want to let everybody in on is, of course, I'm planning for what will be an interview with him, an expose. And I really want to stress that's so important, to have an interview with him, so you all know that everything is legitimate. It's been so long, and I'm working that out right now, but it's all step-by-step process, because we've had to unravel a lot of lies. And I know this channel is very hard to follow if you're a bit slow, but if you're, quick-witted, and if you have intelligence, you'll get it. But this channel is not for the people that are slow. I'm sorry to say. I might talk a little bit fast. I might be a bit fast in the way I express myself, but that's how my mind works. So if you're a bit slow, a bit dumbed down, I'm sorry, you might have to just read the posts on the community board. And I say that in kindness, because a lot of people find the way I talk too fast, too highbrow, too high IQ, too whatever, because I move very fast with my points. I say exactly what I need to say. If you're intelligent, you'll get it. If you're not intelligent, you won't get it. You'll still be dumbfounded after you listen to me. I've said it time and time again. Please watch and read through all of my videos if you want to know his real story and my real story. Nothing I say on here is fabricated. Nothing is said for money. Nothing is said for advancement. This channel has hit almost 1 million people. We've got 3 YouTube channels, and then we've got a blog. Please, you've got to watch the blog. You've got to watch and listen to the blog, because there's a lot on there that you'll never see in the media about RKelly, including the true story about the tape, the famous tape with this so-called underage person that never actually happened. So you need to read the blog to find out the truth about that. The truth about him and Aaliyah is also on the blog. And you'll only ever hear this from me, his partner of 6+ years. I am his only partner. There is no Joyce Savage relationship. There was no relationship with RKelly, none whatsoever, in the least. Now, you'll find out all about that on our YouTube channel here. But you've got to be, like I said, you've got to be intelligent enough to actually want to hear the story and hear the truth. I cannot spoon feed people the truth. It just becomes exhausting. This is why I've made over 600 videos. I had to pull down about 200, because I just wanted people to focus on the main points of his story. And the main points are that his attorneys, we've had back-to-back attorneys that have been corrupt, including Jennifer Bonjean, including Stephen Greenberg. They've corrupted his cases with fraudulent claims of him being in relationships that he never had. This is why he was found guilty. This is why his appeals failed, because they made up stories on his motions. And I can say that and put it and publish it, because I know every single thing I say is true. Nobody can sue me. Sue me, I dare you, Jennifer Bonjean, because you know I'm his only partner. I've spoken to you, we've communicated, and you refused to change the motions because you wanted to back up Stephen Greenberg, your colleague, who is just a scam artist and a shoddy attorney from hell. So, we've had back-to-back attorneys that were shoddy. We had, who put out lies. The last lie that Jennifer Bonjean put on his motions was that Joycelyn Savage was engaged to my partner. We have fought in private these false motions, but unfortunately, we're dealing with sociopaths on all sides, people that want attention, narcissists that don't care about the truth and that don't care about him. But they'll let you all think that they do. When you hear Jennifer Bonjean, his attorney, most recent attorney, speak, you'll be fooled into thinking that she cares about him, but she has not cared about him. I'm his only partner. I'm his only girlfriend of 6+ years. Joycelyn Savage was an intern. Azra Clary was an intern. They never lived with him. The attorneys lied that they lived with him. They never, ever lived with him. They never had any kind of relationship with him whatsoever. Now, you might think, how the hell did they get away with all of this? It's because they can just run with anything. When you're an attorney, especially when you put out your super attorney, you've represented Bill Cosby, you've done this and that, people believe you. Then in I come, and I'm trying to speak for him. Nobody can believe me quite easily because he can't speak. He can't now tell the truth because they've put him in a position where he's damned if he does, he's damned if he doesn't. Until he's pardoned, he's under a lot of pressure to actually stay silent because they've put this on him. Jennifer Bonjean and Stephen Greenberg lied about his relationship status and put him in a terrible position of having to stay quiet. And what that would mean is if he was to then declare that the motions were fake and they were lies, then he's up against these two attorneys that can dispute that and say, well, you're lying or whatever, and then and just turn on him. So you've got to see it from his perspective. He's been trying to do everything he can to clear his name, but he's had deceitful and corrupt people on all sides of his cases, not just his enemies. His attorneys were his enemies. Stephen Greenberg and Jennifer Bonjean are his enemies. So please do not listen to a thing these people say. The RKelly case is so corrupted, I cannot tell you. But thank God, we've had a win, the hugest, biggest win we could ever ask for. The win that we have coming, I cannot express to you. This is, I'm so sad that there's only a few people on here to hear this. I hope this goes viral, but I know it won't, because the only thing that goes viral is bad news. But good news doesn't go viral. The good news that's coming, that is. Now, a lot of you have heard about him being pardoned, and a lot of you have heard from different channels that this was rumored and people were saying that it was going to happen, and it didn't happen. I want to just confirm that it is going to happen. You just have to wait a minute. And I'm just going to say, I don't know the exact timing. Unfortunately, I don't have a direct line to President Trump, but it is going to happen. But there is also something else that's going to happen I can't speak about that I know in confidence. And I can say this now because I know that it could happen any day now. I was the one that was lucky enough to tell my own partner, thank God, of this great news. And what this means for him is you have no idea, because he's been waiting for this win for so long. And we have been waiting for this win. We've tried to work through corrupt judges who, I've been communicating with for over 5 years, Judge Anne Donnelly. And, she is completely corrupt. And I will say that on here for the first time. You've never heard me say it. Judge Anne Donnelly is completely corrupt. That woman, I'm going to tell you a story. She led to the death of a very innocent, beautiful mother of one. And this was in 2022. And I'm here advocating for myself, for Robert, and also for this woman who's now passed. And all because of Judge Anne Donnelly. I'm going to tell you the story of what she did. Judge Anne Donnelly was assigned to her case. This woman ran away from an abusive situation in Italy from her husband, and her husband was hugely abusive. She had one son who was autistic with special needs, beautiful boy. She was American, but her child was half Italian, but she ran away home to America to seek refuge from her abusive husband, who was very powerful in Italy, very wealthy and very powerful. Now, this woman ended up back in New York with her sister and her family, fighting to keep her son protected and herself protected in America, the country she called home, and that she should have been safe within. Now, poor thing was assigned to Judge Anne Donnelly as her judge. And this judge, let me tell you, she is not just mentally unstable and mentally unbalanced. This judge is corrupt to the core. She's malevolent and she's biased and she's dishonest. And I'll tell you more about that as our story unfolds. But this poor woman was assigned to Judge Anne Donnelly. She was fighting for her life and her son's life. Now, Judge Anne Donnelly had received proof that this husband was abusive, proof that this husband was, was abusing his wife and, putting his son under great threat of harm. And she had no doubts that if he was returned back to Italy, which was generally, there's a law that says that if a child is taken without the other parent, they must be returned to the country of birth where the other parent is. And it's a law, it's an international law that they all have to abide by, except for if there is danger or the child might come, to some harm. And in this case, the child had been proven to be under threat of harm. And guess what Judge Anne Donnelly ruled? Because she's heartless, this woman, because this woman doesn't have a heart or a core, she ruled that this boy be returned back to Italy, where he was going to face this monstrous man. And she ruled against this mother who was trying to protect her son and herself. This woman was exposed to this hugely powerful character, her ex-husband, who had already threatened her life, and it had been recorded. You can find recordings of him threatening her life. And because of this case, and because of her lack of protection through Judge Anne Donnelly, and because her son was ordered to be returned, it put her life under risk, and under, because when you're dealing with an abusive man who has power and money, we're not talking about RKelly, we're talking about real abusive men, because RKelly is not abusive, I promise you that. He's the opposite of abusive. That's the problem. That's what we're working with here, is clearing his character and his honor. But this man here, I'm telling you about the story of this woman. Her husband was really abusive and really powerful and had a lot of wealth in Italy and knew a lot of judges, and he made it very clear that he had connections to do this woman harm. Judge Anne Donnelly ordered that this son be returned, this young boy be returned back to Italy without, with or without the mother. And she appealed it. The mother appealed it. She appealed it back in 2000, I believe in 21 or 22. Just before she passed away. And the Supreme Court ruled in her favor, the mother's favor. They said that, but they put it back in Judge Anne Donnelly's hands to make the final decision. So Judge Anne Donnelly had a decision. She could go with what the Supreme Court said and her intuition and a motherly instinct, because she's a mother of two women, of two grown women. She could have chosen to protect this boy and keep him in America because the Supreme Court had ruled in this woman's favor. But instead, this cruel and malicious woman ruled that this boy be returned and back to Italy. So she stuck with her original order and her original decision, because this woman never goes back on her decisions, this Judge Anne Donnelly. That's one thing I've learned in 5 years of communicating with her, with all the evidence in the world. This woman has held back evidence of Robert's innocence. and she is so corrupt. I'm going to expose her very soon, and I hope to God she is charged and convicted, and she knows what it's like to spend years in hell in a jail cell because she's so corrupt. So this young boy was ordered by Judge Anne Donnelly to be returned back to Italy, despite what the Supreme Court had said. So this mother was devastated, distraught, powerless, absolutely felt like what could she do? What could she do to protect her son? It was at that time that she passed away mysteriously. But she had been saying to people that her ex-husband was threatening her life, and then she had complained of feeling that she was poisoned because she had an adverse reaction to some food, and so did somebody else that was around her case. I believe it was her lawyer or attorney, and I think that. And within days, this woman died mysteriously. They're still investigating her death as suspicious. Well, they tried to rule it out as suspicious, but her family have pushed and pushed for this case to be looked at. But meanwhile, after this woman passed away, guess what Judge Anne Donnelly did? She reversed her decision and decided to let the boy stay in New York after all, after losing his mother. She couldn't even think to have done the right thing before. It took the boy losing his only parent, his only sibling. He's alone in New York now. He's with his aunt, living with his aunt. But Judge Anne Donnelly is fully responsible. And if you go online and you look at the reviews for Judge Anne Donnelly, you will be so shocked. Her history going back into the 2000s is exactly what she has done. She is malevolent, she is narcissistic, she's mentally unstable, and she has no morals whatsoever. She has no empathy for any human being whatsoever. And this is why we got nowhere with her. She should have actually dropped the charges against Robert after the New York trial, because she had been informed about my existence as his real partner. She had been informed during the trial about my existence, about my reality, and the fact that Azrael and Joycelyn were never with him, and all of this stuff, with evidence, by the way. She refused to disclose that to the courts. She refused to listen to, I guess, the evidence, and she just hid it and pretended that nothing had happened. And I was in communication with her for 5 years about this, with evidence. Like, you cannot dispute, like, giving her informed evidence about all of these conspirators that had come against Robert. And I have, like, letter upon letter, faxes upon faxes to her with details about all of this. And guess what? Judge Anne Donnelly had so many opportunities, because once you have the court case, if people don't know, I'm going to run down how it all works real quickly. You have the court case, but after the court case, there are opportunities where the charges can still be dropped, because after that there are motions that the attorneys can put through asking still for the charges to be dropped based on there not being enough evidence in the trial of guilt. And it was in that time she could have dropped the charges, but she refused. She kept going, and she kept saying no to everything that his attorneys had presented. And then at sentencing, she was brutal. 30 years. After knowing that he was innocent, by the way, because she knew about me. So she knew that Azrael Clary was never with Robert. She knew because I gave her private evidence that I've never posted on here, only intimate details that you can only know as a partner, a real partner. And I knew dates and things of when Azrael Clary was sent home when we did that. I knew details of financial stuff. I knew things that just nobody else knows. And I presented that all to Judge Anne Donnelly. She ignored all of that, and she just ruled with her narcissistic, cold heart, and just went with 30 years. Meanwhile, I think I was also in touch with later down the track with his Chicago judge as well, because I wanted firstly to tackle Judge Anne Donnelly and get her on board. I thought in my head that judges had no, like, I guess no reason to be corrupt. But then when you look at the system, especially in New York, they all work together. Everybody's working together. Forget about this, attorneys are on this side, because Jennifer Bonjean put down that Joycelyn Savage was Robert's fiance on a motion, all because the government told her to do it. I'm not lying to you all. I'm not lying. I have those messages, and I've kept those messages as evidence against Jennifer Bonjean. Because when I tackled her about it, when I confronted her about it, and I said, "Why have you done this evil when you know that I'm his partner?" Jennifer Bonjean point blank said to me, "Because the government gave me this information that Joycelyn Savage was engaged to my Robert." She didn't get it from Robert. She never spoke to Robert at all. Never spoke to him. When I told her, have you told Robert this, that you've put that on his motions? She said no, but she was going to. She never did. So Robert was in the dark about all that happened. Before he knew it, he was engaged to Joycelyn Savage, and that was on his motions. So he was now presented as, Joycelyn Savage's fiance. And the problem with him saying anything else, this is how narcissistic Jennifer Bonjean, his attorney, his most current attorney, is. She's very narcissistic, doesn't care about him. You've got to understand, narcissistic people can present as really charming and like they care and like they're concerned. They're the most charming, convincing characters you'll ever meet. But deep down inside, they have no heart, no soul, and they don't care. They have no empathy. So no matter how much she presents as like, this caring character that cares about her client and, oh, we're going to get all of these evil prosecutors, I promise you, she was working with the government. I promise you, she was working in collaboration, or she was taking information from them and using it against her own client. Because when I challenged her about, I've got it all in writing. She cut me off the second that I put it out there, because I had all of it in the communication between me and her about all of this. I kept all of those messages. It was on Instagram, and I went ballistic at her numerous times, publicly and privately. Some of you witnessed me going ballistic at her about all of this because she just would not listen. I did not know what her angle was or what she was getting out of it, but I just knew that this woman was pure evil at that point. And that's when I just knew that I had to go down another track and try and free him some other way behind her back. Because at that point, it was too late for him to change attorneys. He had already been through 2 groups of attorneys. He'd already fired a bunch of attorneys, and we're already in a stage of fighting. We're right in the middle of the fight of his life, and he was hanging on hope that even with this false information, he could still be found innocent. But I kept saying to him, "Robert, my love," I kept saying to him, "you've got to listen, because it implicates you. If you don't if we don't somehow find a way to tell the truth, that you were never with Azrael and Joycelyn Savage. They were interns. They were in love with you. You rejected them. We sent them home not once, but twice. We sent them home not once, but twice. We cut them off the second time financially. The first time sent them off packing to Florida. They came back. We thought they were gone. They were gone for like 4 months or 5 months. And they came back when Robert was incarcerated. And he had very little power at that point to keep them away from his life, because they were in touch with his attorneys. They found their way into his condo. Before we knew it, they're living in his condo, squatting in his condo while he's in prison. And they have never been in his home like that, only as interns. So now Azrael Clary has full access to a home and a man that she's obsessed with. So you've got to imagine now the panic in us. So these are things that happened. I've detailed everything and all of this in our videos. as little diary entries even. If you go back to our popular videos, you can find the videos on that, about the emails like between him and Joyce and Savage, explaining that Stephen Greenberg had forcefully put Joyce and Savage as the woman he was meant to live with, even though they never lived together, never were together. On his bond motions, it was COVID. He needed to get out of prison. So, we let it happen the first time because we just thought, okay, we'll clear it up the next time he does a motion. We tried to get him to stop. I tried to get him to stop, Stephen Greenberg, to stop putting Joyce and Savage on his motions for bond. I tried with all my heart. Meanwhile, Robert was doing his best within prison, trying to do that. But Stephen Greenberg, they had all the power in their hands. This is the problem. I was overseas. I was stuck in Australia. It was during COVID season. If you look up the border situation in Australia, you will realize that we could not leave Australia. So I could not go on a plane and get there and fight with these people. I had to do it remotely, and they weren't listening to me. They weren't listening because, our relationship was quite a little bit fresh off the ground, over 6 months or, so I think that they were thinking, well, this woman's probably disposable like the others, or, whatever. This woman isn't something serious. She's just another casual fling, so we can just disperse with her and she'll disappear. They didn't know that I'm not made like that. They didn't know that I'm a different genetic makeup to these women, that I was not going to leave him. That was a promise I made to him, no matter what happened with us, that I was not going to leave his side. I was going to stand for him and stand by him. And, because that's what good people do. I don't want people to be fooled that I'm doing this because, just because of hopes of so we already have something. That's already done. We already have a relationship. I'm not doing this for hopes of a ring or something. I'm doing this because this is what good people, good charactered people do. This is what normal women do. If you're not a normal woman, if you don't have a conscience, you abandon people that you love. And that's what a lot of women out there do. That's what a lot of men do. And I'm just not one of those people. And I'm sorry if you are. I hope to God that God helps you. But anyway, I stuck by him during that bond situation. I was fighting with Stephen Greenberg, and I was telling Robert, get her off your motion for bond, because you're never going to get bond with that savage woman on your bond. You were never going to get it, because this judge here already thinks, the worst of you. I could tell. You can tell by everything she said in her motions, everything she ever said about him, that she was not going to ever give him anything that he wanted. So eventually we managed to get Joyce and Savage off his bond motion, but it was too late. The third also bond motion, it was rejected because they'd already presented a case of him controlling this Savage girl and RKelly. And so now it looks like in I guess everybody else's eyes, they had the collateral to keep Robert in prison unjustly. And, that's the problem, is when the bond was refused and he wasn't able to come out, he couldn't fight his cases properly, because you cannot fight in prison when you have dyslexia, when you have corrupt judges, and when you have people that have abandoned you, and then everybody else, the world, thinking you're guilty. It's not a fair trial. And then the prosecutors doing dodgy business. It's not a fair trial. We all know that. So hello, anybody that's popping in. But yeah, so when you have a case of everybody being corrupt on every angle you look, there are just corrupt characters popping up everywhere. And you've got Don Russell and, all of that business, and the stalker and him claiming to be his manager. And it just kept happening. These people just kept popping up out of nowhere with just false associations to him. I just thought we were never going to get to the bottom of it. We were never going to get to the end of it. But I stuck through it with him. I wasn't I didn't have the channels that I have now. I was on Twitter initially, and I was on Instagram. I'm actually going to take you. Firstly, when it all popped out off, I was on Instagram, and I actually started to advocate silently for him there on my private account, just explaining. And this is when we were actually fresh. So yeah, and so I started to advocate, and then I went on to Twitter, and I was brutally stalked and harassed, cyber stalked by one woman. And I'm going to tell you that story. That woman just saw me hashtag RKelly, in something, and I posted videos of us at that time, and or I posted videos that were sentimental to us, and just was trying to, I guess, relay some part of his character. I don't know what I was doing when I first came on X, because I didn't know where to start with everything. I was literally just like in a mess, because here is somebody who I love deeply, who was taken away. Nobody really knows about me. I'm kind of like, this secret character. But when you go and listen to the Gayle King interview, if you want evidence of my existence, he actually does mention that he was kicking it with a 43-year-old. That would be me. And when he says it very specifically. If you listen to the line, I saved the video actually. You can see it in our shorts, where he's talking about Azrael and Joycelyn Savage, and Gayle King's asking him, so, you've been accused of being with, women that are much younger than you. And he said, and he was talking about Azrael Clary and Joycelyn Savage. And he said, I know older women too. I can kick it with a 43-year-old. A 43-year-old, he says. I'm the 43-year-old he was kicking it with at that time. We became official just after that interview. So we weren't really together. So I didn't have we didn't have that official relationship at that time, but we were kicking it. We were together 24/7, pretty much. So there was no Azrael Clary and Joycelyn Savage. They were living in their own little apartment, obsessing about him and hoping for a relationship with him, hoping. But they were young, stupid, naive, derelict, corrupted women, money-hungry women who had no moral upbringing whatsoever. They were brought up and raised to chase this kind of lifestyle, raised to chase fame, and raised to think that they could be with an RKelly. And meanwhile, he was thinking that they just wanted an internship with him. That's why he employed them. He wasn't thinking, oh, well, I'm going to employ these women because I want a relation. No, they came with their families presenting as morally upright women young women that wanted serious jobs in the music industry, that wanted to be serious artists. So that's why they came with their families, to present like a wholesome and safe tribe of people, because that's what sociopaths do. So they come to him with their families saying, oh, look at us, these sweet young women of 18 and 19, or I think they're 20, 21, one of them was older. And, we just want to work in the music industry with you, RKelly. And they hounded him. They stalked him for years and months, these women. It wasn't just like he said yes immediately. They followed him. And of course, he started to think, wow, these are my greatest fans. They're with their families, so they've got their family support, which must mean that, things are all, everything's good, and they can come work with me if they want. They can learn about the music industry, join my employees, and he had Diane Copeland and all of those people, and they can look after these women, and they can tour and they can see what I do. That's what he was thinking. He was thinking he was taking on proteges and interns that were of legal age. He was not thinking in any sense of a relationship. But meanwhile, Azrael Clary and Joycelyn Savage are plotting with their family, plotting to seduce him. So he had no idea these text messages were going on between mother and daughter, and they're plotting to have their way with him. This is just sinister stuff. Nobody thinks this way except those people that are sinister and dark. These are crime channel people. That's where they belong. They don't belong in his story. They found their way into his story because they're deceitful people. So he was wanting just to audition them first. That's why he met RKelly in a public place, he thought, because he didn't meet her at home. Because if he wanted to seduce her, he could have just, invited him to one of his homes. Could he not? Why would he invite her to a public place where everybody knew he was meeting her? This is nonsense. People are not thinking, So he met her at a hotel with her parents, in tow, and he had security in tow. He had, I think the one meeting his brother was around as well. So he had people all around him. He was never alone when he was out touring. So he had people that knew he was meeting her for an audition. That's why he met RKelly that day. But meanwhile, RKelly was plotting with her sinister mother to seduce him, thinking that he was into young women, not understanding that was all rubbish and they were all rumours. That was all junk that, started with Aaliyah and that fake marriage story, which I've already explained on our blog. So if you want to know about the truth of him and Aaliyah, please go to our blog. The link is in the bio. Scroll down and you'll see the story. You will be shocked. You'll be flabbergasted. You'll be blown away. Because the truth of it is it wasn't a real. He was exploited. He was the one used. It was a showman's, but you've got to go and read it to understand how it got from there to here, where people believe that she was even pregnant with his baby, that little Aaliyah was, no, none of that was happening. So, but the RKellys and the Joyce and Savage's families, they believed this story. So they went after Robert because they thought this story was true. So they wanted to actually sell off their daughters in this trafficking situation by promoting them as these young women that were, interning, but they were going to seduce him. That was the plan. But he wasn't interested. His mind was completely on business. He met with RKelly, thought that she was lovely, because that's how she presents when you first meet this woman. Any sociopath presents as charming. That's why the Bible says charm is deceitful. Never believe charm, because anybody can be charming and make you think, and beautiful. Anybody can be beautiful. I don't think these women are beautiful. I think they're ugly because of the way they present themselves. They're ugly because of their moral characters. They're ugly because they don't have the conviction to stand up for what's right and true. Beauty is more than skin deep. It's more than what you appear and what you see. So anyway, RKelly and was plotting that day, and she met with King. He auditioned with her. That was it. End of story. Meanwhile, she's texting back and forth with her mother. Her mother's trying to give her little tips, trying to egg her on, trying to encourage her to seduce him. That's what ended up in the court. But you will never you don't hear him texting and it being included in the text. So the way that the prosecutors presented that part of his story was that he was somehow involved in these text messages. You can't find him involved in the text messages trying to come on to RKelly. Even when he met her, like via video call or whatever, after they met in person at a concert with her family, he was under the impression that she was over age, because that's the ID she had. Even when she met him for the audition, she had ID saying that she was over 18. Of legal age to audition, to work with somebody, to be away from her family, even though she was with her family presenting her case to him. So he was under the impression he was auditioning a legal intern for a volunteer intern position where she would get to learn about the music industry. And that was that. Same with Joyce and Savage. But meanwhile, both families scheming and plotting and talking about all kinds of how are you going with it? Have you had any advancement with your seduction? These are the letters that were coming from their families. Meanwhile, they're telling their families no, but then the families just kept going and pushing and pushing. So eventually they started to say, oh yeah, we have got somewhere, yeah, something has started to happen. because they're young and stupid girls. But I'm going to talk one day about particularly Joycelyn Savage and how she led to all of this. I'm not speaking from a place of jealousy. She led to all of this mess because she was the one who was going to her family members, and she started to say that something was going on with Robert, even though nothing was happening. And as everybody knows what Timothy Savage is like, this man is a savage. He has no moral fiber. And so he took that and used that to extort Robert and threaten him with false allegations that he was going to take to the media, which he did. He went to TMZ and started to spread false slander of sex slavery, abuse, of holding women hostage. He was the one that got all the people together for Surviving RKelly. He was the one that coached everybody. So this is all because Joycelyn Savage couldn't tell her family the truth because she couldn't be an honest woman. So I don't want to hear people say that she cared about Robert. She never did, because she was going to her family, and they videoed it, by the way. There are videos online you can find of her video of her parents and family interrogating. They did what they called what do they call it? They did a meeting with her, and the video recorded it, and they just interrogated her about Robert. And initially she said no, and then you could see her change her tune and start adding names. Oh yeah, I've only slept with this person and that person in the crew, because she just wanted the attention. These people are just attention seekers. So she was saying that she was sleeping with people in his crew, women. And that's how it started. But then they were saying, oh, so Robert was with you, wasn't he with you? And they're trying to put Robert in something. They're trying to get Robert with Joycelyn Savage on video, so then they could take that to the media and say, look what he's done to our daughter. And meanwhile, Joycelyn Savage eventually caves in this one of the videos I saw, and she alludes to something happening. And that was what led to a further recording, which I've also posted, where she actually has to confess to lying. And she said, so I'm going to one day explain this better, but I think that you get the gist of it. So she lied to her family that something was going on, and then they took that, they used it to extort and blackmail Robert in private, and then they used it to also go to the media and say that he's holding our daughter as hostage, because they were recording everything. Meanwhile, Joycelyn Savage was just nutcase, because she was just saying things just to please her family, saying whatever they wanted to hear, trying to impress them in the moment, not caring about Robert. Same with RKelly. If she met up with her friends, she was saying, yeah, I'm with RKelly, and that wasn't happening. Because the letters to her family were saying that he wasn't interested. No matter what she tried, he wasn't interested. So he was not interested in these women at all. He never was, and never was with them. And the problem is when the attorney stepped in and started to say they were his girlfriends and live-in lovers and blah, 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 just to try and win a case or whatever they were trying to do, it caused us a hell of a lot of problems. And it caused his cases problems, because it made him guilty by association. Because you cannot, why I kept saying to them, don't you tell the truth? Why don't you just tell them that they were interns? Why don't you fight the battle fair and actually fight for his truth? But none of them could answer me, especially Jennifer Bonjean, couldn't answer me why she was just too lazy and had to just go with whatever Stephen Greenberg had already done. We got Jennifer Bonjean in because we were tired of all of this stuff with Stephen Greenberg. We were tired of the lies on his motions. We were exhausted of being separated because of these narcissists. And we thought, okay, a woman, okay, a Cosby, somebody who won a Cosby case, she didn't have any kind of bad reputation out there. We thought we had a win. We thought she's a fighter. She's going to be great. But then we get her on board, and she starts spewing these same lies on his motions behind Robert's back. And I'm telling you, Robert was not with this. He didn't even know this was going on because he was not getting copies of his motions. I was. So I had to relay to Robert what was on his motions. And by that time, it was too late because they'd already been presented to court. So now he has a fiancée, Joycelyn Savage. He never had her as a girlfriend. He never had her as a fiancée. All because Bonjean got that information from a government, from the New York government, at his pre-trial, so pre-sentencing, and she put that on his sentencing motions, trying to say, well, he's got a... I don't know why they couldn't just say he has a partner in her 40s, a legitimate relationship with somebody he's equal, who he loves deeply, and that would have cleared his name, that would have cleared his reputation. These people are as dumb as hell. I think that we give people with credentials too much credit, but I always look at people for who they are. I don't care whether you're an attorney or a doctor or a scientist. I don't care. I look at who you are, because if you can't put two and two together and say, it's far more better to present him with his real life partner, Juliet, who you've been communicating with and who you know is real, because she really has been fighting for him left, right and centre, private and public. And he loves her, because every time they'd send him a message about me, he cheered up completely. They knew all of this about us. Why they couldn't present me in public, I don't know. These people are stupid as hell or corrupt or both, or they were sabotaging him. I don't know. We haven't got to the bottom of why both attorneys did this to him. But all I know is it was just an evil act that led to a lot of really bad things for both of us. And it led to a situation where we had to hide a little bit of our relationship going forward, or be careful with it, because we didn't want to implicate him because of the motions they were putting forward. We didn't want to put him at, we didn't want people to think he was a double dealer. He was cheating on these women with me. Do you understand? Do you guys understand that, because his reputation in the past was of somebody who was, with a lot of women, had a lot of liaisons. So we didn't want to confirm, for them to twist, the prosecutors to twist that and say, oh, well, he led these two women on, he like slept with them and now he's got this 48-year-old girlfriend. We didn't want to give them any collateral for that. So that's why we moved very, very carefully. And it was also, he did it, I know, to protect me, because he's so protective of me, even though I didn't want to be protected. And that's why I put myself out there with this YouTube channel, despite him. I did it because I was like, I don't care whether you want to protect me. I need to protect you, because who's protecting you? Like, everybody, you're protecting these women. You're protecting the women that before them. Look what they did to you. But who's protecting you? No one. So I did this for him because no one else was going to do it for him. And I'm a Christian first, and I think that when you're a Christian, especially at this time of the year, you've got to remember what Jesus did for us on the cross. As a Christian, this is your calling. This is what we're called to do as Christians, is to help other people, innocent people, people that are facing injustice. I don't care who you are. You can take your religion. If you don't have this in your faith, in your religion means nothing. If it's all about self and selfish gain, and manifesting for yourself and all of this stuff, it means nothing. You will end up with nothing if all you do is live for yourself. You have to excuse me, I'm at a hospital at the moment. I'm going to get off but I think I've told you enough about what's going on. There is good news coming, and I just don't want to say too much because I don't know the timing of everything, and people then just want to demand evidence and proof of everything that I can't provide all that evidence, because there is so much that has taken place in the last 6 years, and so much of it is still confidential until we get him home safely. I have to keep a lot of things confidential because I don't know who I'm talking to. I don't know who I'm sharing it with. So you just have to bear with me if you just have to take me at my word at this moment. I know that most of you are sensible people, that you know the difference between a liar and a fraud and an attention seeker, and someone like me who just wants to help her partner that she loves deeply. And I hope that I've reached the right people with this, because we're at a turning point where it can only get better from here. We have to get him home. We have to bring him home now. He has to be home. But there's going to be something that happens when he comes home that I don't want to tell you about yet. But I think that you'll find out when you hear the news of him coming home. And it's going to be pretty major. Let me put it that way. I think some of you will be pretty shocked by what happens when he comes home. And sure, I'll be involved, but it's all about him. And it's going to be the justice and reward that he has deserved all of this time. It is the healing balm. It is God saying, well done, good and faithful servant. It is everything. It's the accolade that he deserves. So I just want to put that out there. You're going to hear about that, I think. I don't want to say too much because, look, I'm very iffy about who's listening. There are a lot of people, I have enemies and friends and foes, all alike listening. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all for listening, and I will catch you on the next live, maybe with him. Anyway, take care and God bless you all.